Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Podcast Juice. My name is Michael Dean, and this is the podcast on Prince. Man, I haven't said that in a while. I'm easing myself back into things. But joining me today, we have a special guest, my man, Edgar, and I'm going to point to him for his last name.
Kruijsen, good evening.
There you go. Sir, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm very good.
Man, welcome to the show. Listen, this is a special one to me because I love talking with other fans, like-minded people who appreciate Prince, and I feel like with you, we can really just like get geeked out and just talk about this stuff, and we don't have to worry about how nobody cares. This our safe space.
Yeah.
so, so welcome,
I
sir.
always think nobody cares, so it's good to have people listening and, and,
Oh
and
man.
engaging in stuff I think about and stuff I write. And
Listen, man, well, one specifically, I wanted to talk about the Prince Twitter thread that you do. And let me just start asking you, who started that whole thing?
well,
Was
it's
that
it's a bit. My friend from the UK started doing these long threads on Prince on Twitter, and I started engaging with him. And well, before we knew it, we were both working together on long threads. Our first thread together was about a possible parade special edition, which never
mm,
materialized.
mm,
And that was part of a longer parade series that he was doing. And after that, we decided to make it an ongoing series with different contributors each edition. So we are the main hosts, Amp and myself, and each we're now in series number 9. So we already had a lot of these series, and each time we invite some old friends, some new friends, and people we think are interesting to have yeah try to and capture the feeling of a song or a theme
yeah.
within a thread of tweets.
Okay. And then just showing sort of here's all of the people that you have for this new one here that's about 1999.
Yeah,
And if you want to go down the list, I will say, you started this thing off of this particular series here with a fabulous, it's like, well, how do you follow this guy? Like, I was reading that, I was like, what? Okay, I never really looked at it like that, or we'll get into some of the things you talked
yeah.
about, but shout out some of the people that you have joining you on this.
Well, there's a lot of well, I'd say familiar faces from the Prince online community, um, and there are some VIPs. For instance, Jill Jones is in our list of contributors this
Wow.
time. And we have people like Richard Cole from Amari Purple Talk, and we have Zach from the MSR blog, etc. etc. So there's a lot of people that have their own blogs or podcasts or are otherwise engaged with Prince, and we try to bring them together, and by well asking them if they want to contribute and if they have a story to tell about a certain song or about a certain album.
Okay. And before
So
we
so
get
feel free to join if you want to join one day.
the pressure,
Yeah.
Twitter is an interesting thing to me. I been on Twitter early on, but I don't know, for some reason I don't know, it's something about it that's, I don't want to say it's hard to me, but I don't know, it's just my brain works a different way. So for me, I find it, I'm hesitant to tweet, I guess, a lot, but I
Yeah.
love reading. I love reading.
Well, it's to me, it sharpens my mind. I want to tell a story, and with Twitter, you're very, you can write a blog, and then you have these long masses of text,
Yeah.
and but with tweets, you have to do 280 letters maximum, and then you have to do another one and another one. So you have to really be sharp, get to the point, know what you
Right.
want to talk about. So to me, it's like a brain exercise, getting things out of my system in
Okay.
very short messages.
So you're trying to say I'm dumb. I'm just joking.
No, no, definitely not. But it's a way to for me it works, and I can totally understand why for other people it wouldn't work, because it is, yeah, it's difficult even to read. It's sometimes difficult, so it works both ways.
Got it. Got it. And with that said, maybe you have a one-upmanship on it. You are a writer. You're a journalist, right?
Yeah, I'm a journalist. Yeah,
Okay.
I've been writing about the music industry for well 25, 26 years now.
Wow.
Um, and I work for a trade magazine in the Netherlands about the music industry. And next to that, I'm a music journalist, so I also write about albums and release and stuff like that.
Okay.
And I wrote about Prince, of course.
So with that said, because I would love to
Mhm.
jump into this, like I want to go back to, and we're going to get into other music too, but just specifically Prince, like what was a couple things I wanted to ask you. What got you into Prince? But I'm really curious, you being in the Netherlands, how do you perceive uh, Prince, I guess American music, if you even look at it that way? I'm just very curious.
Mhm.
How does that sort of bleed in and seep in over there culturally, but specifically to you? So just starting at the
Well,
top, how did you get into Prince?
well, I got into Prince by accident. I was watching television, and the video clip for the music video for now Raspberry Beret was on, and Prince starts that coughing, and
Mhm.
to me that was odd. I was 11 years old at the time, and somehow that clicked. Who starts the video coughing? It didn't make sense to me. And I liked the song. And I got my parents to buy me the album Around the World in a Day, which is
Wow.
a totally weird album to start,
So,
especially
wow.
for an 11-year-old.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Um,
you started with that. That's
yeah, I said I was 11 in 1985, and somehow I had totally missed Purple Rain.
mm,
And 1999 wasn't actually a hit in the Netherlands, so that I totally missed it as well. Also, I was 9 at the time, so
right.
I wasn't working. But Prince was my first step into music, into a wider musical range. And then
Oh,
2 years later, I saw my first Prince concert, the Sign of the Times tour, uh,
oh,
and that became my benchmark.
wow.
This is what a concert
Yeah,
experience is
wow.
supposed to be like. And from there, well, here we are.
I can't imagine like my first concert being Sign of the Times. Like
Yeah,
that sets the bar so high.
yeah, absolutely. And I still can't imagine why my parents let me go. I was there on my own in the stadium, and they were waiting outside in the car. Um,
Really.
and if I look at 13-year-olds now, um, and I
Yeah.
thought, how could my parents have let a
Right.
13-year-old kid go into that stadium
To see
and
Prince.
wait outside?
Well, let me ask you this. Let's go back, man. Like, I assume you had the Sign of the Times album at this time and had been listening
Yeah.
to it. But what did you think of that show, seeing Prince for the first time in person in that sort of situation? What did you think about that?
That was it was I don't want to call it an out of body experience, but it is kind of like that. It was like an alien coming down
Mm,
from space, and he just emerged there from the smoke. And I the weird thing is I remember very few things from that show. I remember the rain. I remember him coming up from the smoke at the start of the show, and that guitar, and then the crowd around me going absolutely bonkers. And um, yeah, and then there was it was like I said, it was sort of an out of body experience. The 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 Around the World in a Day album really triggered my love for music uh,
mm.
in general. And then at that point, at that show, it was okay. This is my guy. This is just amazing. So that's where I got from there. And like I said, I that became a benchmark for concerts. So when I went to other concerts, well,
Mm.
I really had to learn that not everybody is Prince.
Wow, wow. Did you mention that this show was in outside? It was an outdoor?
Yeah, it was an outdoor show. Yeah,
Right.
it was rainy, and looking back at it, I was in the Sign of the Times Super Deluxe set. There's this concert. I was there the day after, and my show was the shortest of the 4 shows he did there. Because of the rain, it got cut short. So we didn't do Forever in My Life, for instance. And it wasn't the long. It's Gotta Be a Beautiful Night. It was really, really condensed. But I didn't know that as a kid. I was there. It was amazing. And
Yeah.
so looking back, having heard all, of course, I collected all the bootlegs. Having heard all of the shows, it's by far the least of the 4 shows he did in that venue. But to me, it was amazing. It was, well, it set the bar high.
Man, I'm so envious that you got to see Sign of Times.
Yeah.
We didn't get to see that over here in the States.
No.
Still mad about that. And this leads you to also create your book, Prince the Dutch Experience. Does that sort of play a hand?
Yeah, more or less. Growing up, I really loved those books that went. Here in the Netherlands in 1988, a book was released called Prince the Biography, and it went track by track on each album. And then at the end of the book, there was a part in which all different shows and stuff were described. And I was totally mesmerized by that book. I have multiple copies, and a lot of them are well torn apart because I read them so much as a kid. But shortly after, not shortly after that, but a few years after that, Per Nielsen had his books, which were day-to-day activities by Prince, and I adored that book as well. And from there, I started collecting stuff that was from my own country, because the entries in Per's book on the Dutch shows were minimal, and that's logical, of course, because he had a lot of shows to cover. And I always wanted to write a book. I wrote multiple books right now. I only wrote one about Prince, but somehow that stuck. I wanted to write a book about specifically those Dutch shows. Also because the Dutch audience and Prince seemed to have a good connection. You know, the Sign of the Times movie was filmed over here in the Netherlands. The Love Sexy show in Germany, he had it had a Dutch audience. The tickets weren't on sale in Germany. He had Dutch fans coming in there, and stuff like that. A lot has happened in the Netherlands. So I wanted to write something about that. So that's basically where my book came from.
What is it that, in your opinion, what is the connection that drew Prince to come there, and specifically Sign of the Times? Like I said, that didn't tour in the States, for instance.
No. And we had 7 shows.
Yeah, like, what was it? Do you think that he was like, that's where I gotta go? They feeling this over there. I mean, I don't know what he thought, but I'm just curious. You as a fan, what did you?
I'm not sure, and I often that was one of the things I wanted to examine in my book. I often thought like, oh, we Dutch fans, we think we're special, and people in Germany must think the same, and people in France must think the same as well. But there really was something between Prince and the Netherlands for a long time. In the end, he moved to Belgium a bit more, but for a long time, I think the Dutch fans are really open-minded, and they really think that they don't look. You just asked what I thought about American music in general and Prince, and I don't think that Dutch audiences see artists as coming from a country. They don't see a British artist. They don't see an American artist or a German artist or whatever. They see an artist, and if they connect to it, it doesn't matter where that person is from. It's the music that has to carry the legacy, and that's a thing that's typical for a Dutch audience, I guess.
What that's interesting. So you just see just the art. You just see just the artist, so you just hear the music.
Yeah.
When you I'm curious at just that young age, and again, I'm only preferencing this because I'm in America, and like me, I have not been out of the country yet, so I have a sort of different context of the way I look at certain things. But what did you think of the songs and like his presentation? Does any of that play into? Is there some frame of context, I guess, when you see Prince at that age, or you're just like seeing it, and this is the first thing you see, I guess this is your
Yeah,
context, I
yeah.
suppose, right?
It's kind of like a duck crawling out of the egg, seeing the first thing that moves, and that's
Mhm.
his mother or father or whatever. That's that might be it. But also, what I was a bit of an outsider. I was a weird kid. I still am a weird kid. And what really attracted me to Prince as a person and Prince as a musician is that his message was, don't be afraid to be the outsider. Embrace
Hmm.
that we are all different. Embrace that we all have to, get along together, and embrace who you are. And I really
Hmm.
liked that he was himself, no matter what. He was Prince. And to me that was very inspirational as a kid, because if he can live his life being completely himself, why can't I? And that's what I always try to do in my life: be my honest self, no matter what. And so that's one thing that drew me to um, his music, because it's really, there were other artists I admired as well. David Bowie is also like the outsider, but
Mhm.
with David Bowie, I really love what he does. But to me, it always felt like a trick. He was
Mhm.
portraying
Yeah,
the
okay.
the outsider, and Prince
Right.
was the outsider, proving that you could lead your life on your own terms.
That's an interesting thing that you just said, because
Yeah,
yeah, Prince. It seemed the way he presented it, that was him. Like
yeah.
all of these looks and the changes, but that was him. He wasn't pretending to be some. Now, whether or not he knows or not, I don't know. But I get what you're saying. Yeah, he seemed very authentic. He didn't question, like, oh, okay. I think, I know this comment's going to start. Probably when you get to the part in the 90s, maybe, I would imagine it kind of felt a little bit like, is he now he's like a rapper, or he's changing sort of to this? Is this Prince? When, obviously it is, but I don't know, you seeing Prince during these times and the changes, was there ever a time that you ever thought Prince was not being authentic, or it was putting
I,
out
I,
something that
well, I always measured him by myself. And
okay.
if you look at me right now, I'm a totally different person than I was 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, I was a totally different person to how I was in the 1990s, for instance. So people evolve, and you have to try out stuff if it fits or if it doesn't fit. And I always felt like he was just moving along, uh, again, on his own terms, and maybe not always successful, and maybe not always what I would want to hear from him. But that's what
Mhm.
I liked, because otherwise we could have had like 10, 20 Purple Rain
Right,
variants, because that's successful, and he didn't do that. And so uh, I must admit he lost me for a little while, especially in this century, from 2002 and on, for a
mm,
few years. And that's also the time that he didn't tour Europe that much. So
okay.
I was that's my, well, gray era. But
I think
yeah,
we
but
all
I
have
always tried to follow him no matter what he did.
now. With that said, have you gone back and sort of revisited the gray era
Oh
for you?
yeah,
Uh,
I always listen to the albums, of course. If there was a new album, I always bought it. I listened to it, but not as extensive as I did in the time before that.
mm,
So I really got back, and I really started to appreciate those albums, especially Lotus Flower. I really like that album. 3121 is a great album as well. It's one
mm.
of the first track series we did, as a matter of fact, because we all loved that album. So I really got back to it. But at the time, in real time, I had to catch up a few years later.
Was there anything in that where it was you were sort of changing, or I don't know,
Yeah,
your
that as
maybe?
well. Fun story. The one of the first dates I had with my wife was going to the One Night Alone show of Prince in Rotterdam, and she absolutely hated it. Um,
Oh,
and
and you
yeah,
still got married.
yeah. and still she's still not a Prince fan. She only saw him once, and it was with me. But she's still not a big fan. But what happened? We got married a year later. So it wasn't that. I'm not saying that it was that I couldn't play Prince music in the house. Of course not. But if she was in the house as well, I usually pick something. I love all kinds of music, so why would I play Prince if she's in the house and knowing that she doesn't like it? So that might have been part of it.
Okay. Okay. Going back to again your origins with Around the World in a Day, and of course that goes into Parade.
Yeah.
And then we were talking about Sign of the Times. When did you go backwards to go
But it
up the
pretty late. I think from 1990, and I went backwards. So I had a few of the old albums on a cassette. I don't think it wasn't until that Sign of the Times tour that I heard, for instance, Little Red Corvette for the first time, because it was played in concert, but I hadn't heard the album version yet at that point in time.
So those songs had not, they didn't trickle over. Well, at least, and you didn't hear them at that.
No, I didn't hear them, and they weren't big hits here in the Netherlands. It's really weird that in the 1999 era, Vanity had a big hit over here with Nasty Girl, and at one point the tour that we now know as Triple Threat tour. Triple Threat was supposed to come to the Netherlands, and we had this magazine cutting saying Vanity 6 is coming, and then all the way on the bottom is Prince is coming along as well. Because, so that's what
that would be awesome.
Yeah, that's what how popular he was at that point in time. He just way below Vanity, which is madness looking back at it. So those songs weren't part of Dutch culture, so you didn't hear them much on the radio, and basically everything we heard was Purple Rain and onwards.
Okay, so you did hear Purple Rain though. That
I did hear. Yeah, there was no escaping Purple Rain, of course.
And the movie came out over there and everything.
Yeah. I saw the movie. I saw it on VHS because I was too young to go. Like I said, my entry point was 1985. So by the time I saw the movie, it was out on VHS.
I'm curious.
And I like that.
I was gonna say, did you see Cherry Moon? Did that come out over there?
Yeah, I saw that real time.
Okay.
And I didn't know what to do with that. No, I was too young. I didn't get it. Right now, I love it, but back then, yeah, I begged my parents to go and see it, and yeah, I remember leaving the cinema disappointed. But as said, right now I love it.
Yeah, that's another conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm with you. I watched it the other day, and it's just like, it's so funny. I was showing it to my 19-year-old daughter the other day, and she was just like looking at it like, just trying to understand. She was like, wow, this is weird. Like, because there's so many interesting tonal shifts with the characters. Yeah. And she was like, and she's looking at it from today's lens. She was just like, okay. We were watching the bathroom scene. I don't think I couldn't explain it to her. She was like, what is he doing in the bathroom? I was like, yeah. That was the thing they did, I suppose.
Yeah. It's Prince, you know.
But man, that's so fascinating. So you said Prince was sort of your first musical thing that really became yours. What did that spawn you to get into afterwards? Other musicians?
Well, many things. I grew up in a musical family, not musical. My parents weren't really musical at all, but my grandparents were. So they encouraged me to listen to anything from classical music, which they played themselves, to new music. And I always had an open mind. If music was interesting to me, I didn't care if it was like top 40 music or very obscure alternative rock or whatever. I took in everything, and I still do. I find music is one of the most fascinating art forms because it can really touch you on the inside. When I look at a painting, I love visual art, but it
Mhm.
doesn't hit me the same way that music does. And so I listen to everything, and that's maybe something that Prince taught me as well, because you know people
Yeah,
ask me to label Prince, and they say, yeah, pop, funk, but
right.
it was everything. It was hip hop, it was rockabilly, it was
Yeah,
just a mixed bag of everything. And if he could play every kinds of music, why can't I listen to every kind of music?
right. Interesting. Yeah, yeah. I think with Prince, and I think this is the key difference between him and anybody else that comes along, is that he himself had to be a fan of music or almost a scholar to music, and would just anything that it seemed he would hear or see, he would bring it in and do his sort of interpretation, or he would incorporate it into what he was doing. And so, like you said, you could hear it all in his
Yeah,
stuff. He wasn't scared to try anything
no,
and
absolutely.
almost kind of master some of them. And it was always, oh wow, even just when I'm thinking of Claire Fisher strings, or
Yeah,
going into jazz or different. It's just like, yeah, he just took that and freaked it, as I say. Like, he just always was a sponge, and I think that's what made him. And on top of that, he's a master musician on himself. He's a master musician, right? So you
yeah,
layer that with this mind that just sucking everything in and then spitting it back out. It's just
yeah.
fast, and then the work ethic, to back all that up.
It's mind blowing.
It's
It's
just like, yeah, you don't
it's
see
mind
that.
blowing.
Yeah.
In my book, I have this. There are shows in Rotterdam in 1986, and shows again in Rotterdam in 1988, and those are on exactly the same dates, 17 to 19 August.
Wow.
So that's a 2 year period. And if you look at what happens in those condensed 2 years, he makes 3 albums, one deleted album. He makes a movie, three
Mhm,
different world tours, completely different world tours,
mhm.
and lots of stuff
Right.
for other artists. Uh, the book I wrote on Prince took me 15 years. How does he do that in just two
Right.
years?
Yeah,
Amazing.
that's the part of Prince that I want to always spotlight, because it's just like, yeah, you can listen to these albums, and of course they're exceptional, but that work ethic behind creating all of that is that damn near the star. I mean, that is
Yeah,
the engine that just powers it all, man. That
yeah,
persistence consistently. And I'm sure you can think back in your life, and I can say 1988, and you'll probably know, oh, this album, Prince album came out, and this is what I was doing in my life at that time. Like, it's always framed by what album was out at that year. Oh, okay, now I
yeah.
remember what I was doing.
But
Um,
the thing is, he was already way ahead of that album. That
right.
album, and while we were listening to Parade, Sign of the Times was already as good as done.
Yeah.
And
That's
etc. It's fascinating. But while
yeah.
he was on the Parade tour, or even on the Purple Rain tour, he around the world in a day was already done. He
Already in
was,
the can. Yeah.
and this sometimes I get a little error in my head. It's hard for me to comprehend that only a few days after the Purple Rain tour ended, he recorded "Sometimes It Snows in April." To me, that is a 1986 song, not a
Yeah.
1985 song. It's
That part of the game is, I just can't imagine, sitting on those songs. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, the whole world is going crazy over this, and then he's already created the next, and just gotta sit on those, and he's just jumping to the next thing.
yeah,
The other thing too, and this is kinda going back to your Twitter thread, he was also super detailed,
yeah,
in a sense of, there was so many hidden things that he would put in the music, and then, in this 1999 cover, that most people wouldn't even spend the time going, putting in all, because it's like, who's gonna look at it, or they're not
yeah,
gonna but he was meticulously. I want to say he was meticulously detailed about the littlest things, you know.
Yeah.
And one of the things that jumped out at me when I saw his shoe collection at Paisley Park, I
Yeah.
mean, it just sounds crazy, but when I looked at it in person and I'm looking at the details of each individual, it's like, well, I would have never seen this. Like, there's so many, the little thing here, and I was like,
Yeah.
wow, you didn't have
It,
to do that, but obviously
yeah.
that's how his brain must think, you know, where you hear things in the songs and these little things that tie into another song, or you could hear they bled together and they got separated over years, which leads me to, you know, the 1999 cover that you dissected
Yeah.
brilliantly, man. And I'll just pull up some things here. Give me 1 second. Oh, here we go. All right. Um, just want to jump around to a few things. First, just to go back to this right here, man. Talk to me about this picture here and what was going on with this.
Well, that's actually at the that also didn't tour the US, but that's the My Name is Prince exhibition
Mm,
that was in Europe in 2018. And there was a news that there was this opening day that was for journalists only. Well, being a music journalist, I got an invitation, and there was a news crew as well, and they started to follow me around, see my observations, and this is me actually looking at the the remote for for the garage at Paisley Park, which was on display, and I really geeked out on that because I could imagine that Prince must have touched that remote control for the garage maybe more than he touched some of his guitars. So
well,
I really like that it made him a person.
okay.
Uh, so that's this specific picture. But if you look at in the upper corner, there's this hallway, and there was this little Polaroid on display, and that's what
Hmm,
triggered my interest in the 1999 album cover.
okay, I believe that would be this guy here. I'm gonna
Yeah,
zoom into that.
yeah, it's it was well, it was a blink and you'll miss it thing. You know, at the exhibition there were all these clothes and album designs and stuff like that. And this was a little Polaroid, and most people didn't even notice that it was there. But it fascinated me because you had there the 1999 album title on top,
Yeah.
and and when looking at it, it was prohibited to take pictures. But I visited that exposition a lot, and eventually I managed to sneak in. My phone. I had to have a picture of it.
Had to do it.
Yeah, I had to do it, and only a year later it was full blown in the Beautiful Ones book. So I didn't have to take that picture after all. But what I liked about it is that you could see, like you said, the details. There had been a lot of planning going on. Um, the album cover wasn't a random album cover. There were a lot of thought has been put into it.
Yeah.
um, and that's what triggered it for me. And like I said, I revisited Prince's older work fairly late. So by the time I got 1999, I had it on CD. And if you see the album cover on a CD, it's so small you hardly notice what's going on.
Right.
So I never really paid attention until I saw that little Polaroid at the exhibition, and that's when, well, things were starting
Trigger.
to trigger me and find out what is going on this album cover.
Yeah, man. I obviously have seen the album cover. I remember seeing it back in the day. I think when I was younger and I happened to see it, I think it was at my cousin's house or something. The only thing I could reference at the time would have been like a Parliament Funkadelic record. It
Yeah,
kind of reminded me of something like that. But the way, and I don't want to spoil it all in here. I don't want people to go check out the thread. But the way you kind of go through and really zoom in and take the different chunks and sort of breaking them down a little bit, I just like I was like, wow, it's fascinating because it kind of just gives you a possible glimpse in some of the things Prince was either exposed to or that he was aware of. And it's interesting to me to think that some of those things tie into the music somehow. It's like, because this is, I mean, I don't know if
Yeah,
that picture was his original idea of the album cover. Was that what this was?
I don't know. And unfortunately, I wasn't there, of course. But this picture, it was well. Jill Jones commented on the thread, and she said that they had this big mood board um,
Mm,
in his house, and people added stuff, and this is what it looked like.
okay.
So
Almost like a
so
vision.
it's yeah, it's like a how did she call it? Oh, I forgot. Um, well, more she called it more or less of a roadmap, and that's basically what it is.
Okay. Wow. I love this right here. Like
But it
that's
is because there's so much there, and there's so much bleeding in from earlier eras, um,
right.
and there's so much in there as well that bleeds through to other eras. It's really like Prince is at a crossroads, and this album cover is a statement, and it's his first album that doesn't have his own face on it, um,
Hmm.
and for a good reason, I think, because he really wanted. I believe, as said, I wasn't there, and I can only say what I think has happened. But I really think he wanted to have an album cover that really deepened the music that was on the album.
Yeah, it adds so much to the mythology of Prince.
Yeah. For
And
instance, you're now scrolling uh, the arm that's in the R of 1999 of on the 1999 is Marilyn Monroe. And
with
if
the
you
song.
look, yeah, that one, and if you also look at the poster that came with the Vanity Six album, there's another poster of Marilyn Monroe behind the three girls.
Hmm.
So I really think that is a deliberate thing. There must be a connection there.
Yeah, and that was, the whole Marilyn Monroe. I can only remember her, and I'm a kid, but I obviously the imagery of her was so strong in the
Yeah,
80s, and obviously it's, you know, her influence from the previous years is so strong. I try to understand. I was trying to understand, like, for somebody today, I guess, I don't know who that would be now, but the imagery of a woman that was such an influence on the culture still had a hand, even for Prince, which
yeah,
he's from that era somewhat. So I could see why, yeah, that's
yeah.
such a strong thing. And I always thought, JoJo's can speak to that, but when I first saw her in the
She looks
1990s,
like Marilyn.
yeah, it was like a direct. I was like, oh, it's Marilyn Monroe or something.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. In the 1999 era and in the Purple Rain movie, she has that Marilyn Monroe thing going on.
yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, man, there's so many
Hmm. Yeah,
little nuggets in there.
yeah.
How
And
long did it take you to start going through and figuring that out? I was just curious.
well, like I said, this started in 2018
Okay.
when seeing that Polaroid and seeing the book a few months later. But after that, it kind of disappeared because I had other things going on. There's so much to investigate if you take a deep dive into Prince's body of work, and it's almost impossible to have a hyper focus because there's always something else coming along that's also interesting.
Mhm.
Um, but this it took me. The weird thing is, last year, D'Angela asked me if I wanted to talk on our next symposium, which is all about the 1999 era.
Yeah.
And back then, I thought, well, I didn't live through the 1999 era. I might not have something important to say about it. And I never thought about it anymore. And then when we started doing this thread series, a lot of people were coming up with the songs, and we wanted to give everyone a place, and there was no song left for myself. So I thought, oh, you know what? That stupid little Polaroid. Let's. And I have been thinking about that Polaroid a lot, and have been trying to connect. So it's on and off. I've been thinking about it for years, and now I just wrote a thread about it when we
Okay.
announced it, and this is what this is what happened.
Wow, right on, man. All right. So definitely want to invite everyone to check out the Prince Twitter thread, hashtag 1999 thread.
Yes.
Who's up today? I know they're going to hear this maybe tomorrow, but who's
Today is Aisha Staggart, and she did an extremely long thread about dance music, sex, romance, which connects which connects it to a lot of different artists, a lot of different songs. So that's a very interesting thread. And then tomorrow we have Roy Turner doing. I believe he's doing automatic. I'm not sure. Sorry, but we have Roy tomorrow. And after that, well, you just showed I should have the itinerary here.
Hold on 1 second. I'll bring it up for you. Get my mouse over there. There we go.
There we go. Yeah, and indeed, Roy is doing automatic on Monday. Tuesday, Tonya Pendleton is doing something in the water. Henk Liebeek from the Netherlands is doing free on Wednesday. Then we have Jill Jones talking about Lady Cab Driver. That should be interesting.
Yeah, very much.
Zachary Hoskind doing All the Critics Love You in New York. And then Bridget Cole doing International Lover. And that rounds it up.
Man, you know what's awesome about this type of stuff is that you actually got, somebody who was there to contribute.
Yeah.
A lot of times, not just print stuff, but anything that we're really into online or people have a shared thing, you don't always get the people that had something to do with it to sort of contribute and be involved. And I just got to salute Jill. And there are always others that get involved, but it's just, that's great.
Yeah. I really love that. That's one thing that I don't regret it, because it was how it was at that point in time. When I wrote my book, I had a few people that were there at the time talking to me for my book, and a lot of people saying, well, I don't know, we should talk, difficult. Mm-hmm. And then the book was released, and then a lot of people came through wanting to talk after the book was released. So I'm currently working on an update.
Oh, okay.
With more people that were there, because nice. I talked to Andre Simone about the very first show in Europe with him and Des going to the red light district, and Prince didn't want to go. He was a bit afraid of the red light district, which is amazing. That's because funny. He was there doing this raunchy show, mm-hmm. and then when his bandmates go there, he doesn't join them. It's typical. Yeah. So we have him and we have Shelby and Sheila. I talked to Sheila.
Wow.
So those people will be in the next.
Oh, okay. Shoot, sign me up. I want to read that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I might translate it. I wasn't sure if there would be an audience outside of the Netherlands, because it's so distinctive.
But there is. Stop. We want to.
Yeah. So. Yeah. The thing is that's what I like about these things. If you take a deep dive, and I really hope that other people in other countries might do the same one day. There's always something happening that you can connect to the bigger picture. That you can connect to this career of one of the most unique artists that has ever roamed the earth, and it's important to have all these pieces fit together and see where things come from.
Absolutely, man. So with that said, we've got the next 15 minutes before we wrap it up. I just want to go. So the show's over now. Everybody, thank you for coming. Work it like a job. Now this is for my hardcore heads, my Patreon people. We're gonna talk about some Prince, man. Listen.